Okay, welcome to part 6 of our online course on the Juche Idea, which is organised by the British Group for the Study of the Juche Idea, Korean French Association of the UK, and the Juche Idea Study Group of Ireland. In the previous sessions, we had a basic introduction to the Juche Idea and then examined the philosophical basis of the Juche Idea. Now we're going to transit to, or move on to, looking at how the Juche Idea is applied in practice and what it actually means in terms of state policy. In order to do so, we must first have a general overview of the guiding principles of the Juche Idea before looking at each feature of the Juche Idea's application to policy questions. Some people wrongly see the Juche Idea as something mystical or abstract, as they do not understand it correctly. It is hoped that this part of the course will serve to deepen the understanding of the Juche Idea and dispel illusions and misunderstandings about the Juche Idea. Learning about the guiding principles of the Juche Idea will also demonstrate that the Juche Idea is a universal concept that can be applied to all countries and simply not just Korea. The importance of the guiding principles of the Juche Idea was defined by the great leader Comrade Kim Jong-il in his classic work on the Juche Idea, published in March 1982. And he said, the guiding principles of the Juche Idea are the guide to establishing Juche in party and state activities and in all spheres of revolution and construction. They are explicit fundamental principles which must be observed in successfully carrying out the revolution and construction by adhering to the independent and creative stands and enhancing the role of ideological consciousness. In order to apply the Juche Idea to the revolution construction, it is essential to observe thoroughly the guiding principles of the Juche Idea. End of quotation. It can be said that the two basic pillars, the foundation stones of the guiding principles of the Juche Idea, are the independent stand and the creative method. The independent stand and creative method are in turn an expression of man's role as master of everything. Comrade Kim Jong-il said of the independent stand, and I quote, if the revolution construction are to be carried out as required by the Juche Idea, independence must be maintained and realized in party and state activities. End of quotation. The independent stand means maintaining and defending independence. The creative method means depending on the popular masses, finding methods suitable for the situation and giving precedence to ideology. For the purpose of this course, we are going to concentrate on the independent stand. Those who want to read up about the creative method, I would refer them to the above mentioned work of Comrade Kim Jong-il on the Juche Idea and other study materials on the Juche Idea. The application of the independent stand in practical terms means the following: Juche in ideology, independence in politics, self-sufficiency in the economy, and self-reliance in defense. We are going to look at each of those in the sessions that follow this one. Juche defines the independent stand as being totally essential to the revolution and construction. It is not an optional extra or a bolt-on or a gimmick or something that can be thrown away, but a fundamental principle that must be maintained in the revolution and construction at all times. The experience of the Korean Revolution, and indeed of other countries in the world, shows that this is true. In the revolution and construction, the masses of each country must display their role as masters of the revolution and construction. No one can replace them in the struggle. Of course, there may be cases when internationalist aid is important, but it will always be secondary or supplementary. It cannot replace your own efforts. To give a practical example, in 1936, the Popular Front in Spain established a republic and waged a revolutionary war against the counter-revolutionary fascist Franco forces that were in collusion with the imperialist Allied forces. At the time, the former USSR supplied the Spanish people with goods which were equivalent to the value of 417 million rubles, and heavy weapons such as planes and tanks, and sent military advisors and volunteers. In August 1938, the Spanish International Coordination Committee was founded in Paris to send an aid fund of 300 million francs and a lot of food, clothes, and medicines for 2 years. A meeting of communist parties of 17 European countries was held, and an international support campaign was active for the fighting Spanish people. 35,000 volunteers from 54 countries, including Britain, went to the Spanish front, so the number of fighters mounted up to more than 1 million. However, the Spanish People's Front failed to check the counter-revolutionary advance of the Franco-fascist clique, and in the end, they were deprived of their people's government. What was the reason? Of course, it was attributable to the treacherous conspiracy of the imperialist powers, and particularly armed and open intervention by fascist Germany and Italy. But the main reason the Spanish People's Front failed to defend the gains of the revolution to the last, although international support for the Spanish Revolution was ardent, lies in the fact that the People's Front failed to fortify the internal forces firmly and rely on them thoroughly. There are many examples of revolutions that received massive outside assistance only to fail because their own internal forces were not sufficiently strong and had not been built up. The revolution and construction is the struggle of the masses for independence. If the masses are to realize their independence through revolution and construction, they must solve all problems in the revolution and construction according to their own independent judgment and conviction. If one does not have one's own sense and behaves in this way or another according to the request of others, he cannot carry out the revolution construction at all in his own interests, so he cannot realize independence. The revolution and construction are the undertaking of the popular masses and of the masses themselves. As the revolution and construction are their own undertaking, the masses ought to solve all problems in the undertaking on their own responsibility and initiative. If one depends on other strength, he will not be able to carry out the revolution and construction and realize his own independence forever. Since the revolution and construction are the struggle for independence, dancing to the tune of others and depending on others' power without the independent stand are contrary to the nature of the revolution construction. Next, the reason why the independent stand must be maintained in the revolution construction is that the revolution construction are carried out with each nation state as a unit. Country and nation is the unit of social life and the stable collective of people who are formed through the historical process. Men, social beings, have lived in a certain social collective since the first day they came into being. This collective has ceaselessly changed and developed through the process of the people's struggle for independence. A clan can be said to be the first social collective developed from a tribe, and a tribe into a race, and further to a nation. A nation that was formed in this way was combined with state machinery to become a more stable social collective, a nation state. Nation states are strictly distinguished because each of them is a firm social collective that is formed on the basis of commonness in blood, language, culture, and territory. As long as states and nations exist, people inevitably live and conduct with the nation state as a unit. Since the revolution construction are carried out with each nation state as a unit, masters of the revolution construction in each country are the people of the country. The revolution construction in each country is the undertaking of the country that must be carried out on their responsibility. Therefore, the popular masses must maintain the stand of master towards their own country, the independent stand. Today, sophisticated technical means rapidly develop. Accordingly, relations and exchanges among the countries, nations have become closer on a worldwide scale. Western imperialists describe it as if the world is becoming, and I quote, a world without borders, and I quote again, integrated and homogeneous. But that is nothing but an absurd sophism, distorting the truth. As society develops and the relations and exchanges among nations become close, commonness in the life of countries and nations increases, but the commonness has an independent and individual development of each country, and the nation as its premise and its basis. Since each country and nation has its own ideology, system, history, and culture, and shapes its own destiny, the integration of the world is inconceivable. This tells that one must not give up the independent stand, but must maintain it more firmly, although society develops and relations and exchanges among countries has become close. The commonness among them may be increased. Maintaining the independent stand is the very correct way for all countries and nations to defend themselves and achieve their independent development and prosperity. Thank you for listening. And now I'll set the following questions. Question 1, what do you see as the relationship between the guiding principles of the Juche Idea and the philosophical principles of the Juche Idea? Question 2, what do you understand about the independent stand and creative method? Question 3, why is the independent stand important? Question 4, how would you argue against someone who says independence is not important?